Hello and welcome to our second stop in Tirol, Austria. We are now in Innsbruck, the capital of the Alps. I'm Martina from the Austrian National Tourist Office, and I'm very happy that you're able to join us today. Before we start, just some quick housekeeping rules. If you have any questions or comments, please post them in the chat and we will answer them at the end of the session. In case we are not able to answer all your questions, we will send you a follow-up with all the questions and answers. In Innsbruck, as I mentioned, is the capital of the Alps. Antonella, a hiking guide, will tell us more about what's so special about the city combination and nature combination, and then we will hear from Claudia, the owner of the Wilderin, a new restaurant in Innsbruck. But I think now it's time to visit Innsbruck. Over to you.
A very warm welcome from Innsbruck. We are here at the Bergisel ski jumping area, best known from the Olympic Games. We do have the perfect scenery in the background, the beautiful cityscape of Innsbruck. My name is Eva Walter. I am part of the Tirol Tourism Board and therefore responsible for the markets of Austria and Switzerland. I didn't come up here all by myself. Today I'm joined by Antonella.
Hello, Eva.
Hi, nice to have you here.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Almost perfect day to be here.
Well, it's a typical day, I would say, for Innsbruck. It's rather windy. We can feel it even up here in the Bergisel, and the wind is nice because it's warm and actually pretty beautiful outside, and quite stormy.
We take it. We love the view no matter what the weather is. Antonella, you're not only an Innsbruck local hero, your work does evolve around the city and especially the city center. You're a tour guide, a city tour guide, but also a hiking guide, or at least you spend a lot of the time as a city guide also in nature. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about the special things you can do within your work?
Well, the great thing, it's always an outdoor activity. So actually, I just recently thought about it, that I have quite a healthy job. I'm always outside, most of the part, let's say, because of course we're visiting also museums and so on, palaces. We have plenty of them also in Innsbruck. But, Innsbruck is a town without the mountain. It would not be Innsbruck. So the mountains are really part of the town. And as you can see, the Northern Mountain Range, by the way, also more or less the natural border between Austria and Germany on that side, or Tirol and Bavaria. They can be reached very easily within half an hour right from the city center. There is a funicular that connects with the cable car, and that's great. And if you're doing city tours in the town center, then you have the mountains always surrounding the town, and you always have the view up to the mountains, and vice versa. If you're up in the mountains, you have the view down to the city center, and that combination makes Innsbruck so unique.
That's for sure. For me, as also a local, after a lot of years already, it is still fascinating how quick you can get from the city center to the top. That is a huge advantage in summer. What kind of activities around the city and the nature nearby are in summer the perfect ones?
Well, it depends, of course, on how much or how sportive you are, but actually you do not need to be even that sportive because, as we just talked about, it's easy to get up to the top and just enjoy or just breathe the fresh air. And I think is that you are up on top and the vegetation is high alpine vegetation, fauna, flora. So it's an extreme contrast. And of course, there are lots of, mountain huts, mountain chalets. They offer also perfect menus, of course, and it's nice to just hike. Depending on how much you want to do, from 20 minutes up to lots of hours. You can tour everywhere around and or cycle, of course. Mountain biking is also quite popular. Innsbruck is a very young town. We have lots of students, 40,000 students, many students that come also from other parts of Austria, from Vorarlberg, where you are from, for instance, also from Germany, of course, from other countries. And the reason why they choose Innsbruck as their perfect town for their studies is because we have the nature right in town or part of the town, and that makes it quite great to study here.
I can only join in the, for me it as well was the reason to not only move here, but also stay here. And maybe you can give us some special tips, some local tips, how you can escape the areas in the city. Usually a city you think of a lot of crowded places, some areas you can get some relaxation without meeting too many people. You have any tips?
Well, of course, I mean, as I said, Innsbruck, the town center itself is very precious, very historic, but rather small. The inner city is also not too large. I mean, Innsbruck has 130,000 inhabitants in Austria. It's the first largest town. Right from the town center, you can escape everywhere just by, taking public transportation or just walking. The area around the Berg Isel, where we are just now, there are nice gorges that are part of the stream Sil, which is the second largest river that crosses Innsbruck, the town, and that part of the valley. The northern mountain range that we already mentioned. There are lots of parks also in town, right in the center, the Imperial Gardens, always very crowded during the summer months, also with lots of people who just, spend their lunch break hours or whatever in town. So you do not need even to escape the inner city because there are so many possibilities right in town also to just relax.
Perfect. And in short distances, you can reach everything without too much complexity. That really is something perfect. The city center itself, for me, for example, the relaxation doesn't always necessarily come from nature. Of course, that is one huge advantage. But also for me, spending a Saturday morning in the city, farmer markets, the nature, you cannot only breathe the fresh air and enjoy the nature with doing smaller activities, but also you can taste it. In Innsbruck, there are a lot of farmers markets at a Saturday morning where you can get your fresh produce from all around the city and spend the Saturday morning in the city. What can we do else?
Perfect Saturday morning, as you said. The farmers markets, it's a philosophy. I would say not only here in Innsbruck, it's becoming more and more popular just to buy local. And in Innsbruck and surrounding, this philosophy, let's call it maybe like this, is quite strongly represented. Especially on Saturday morning, as you mentioned it, in the main market hall, which is right in town next to the river. The farmers from the area, they sell their products. It's also combined with a little bit of entertainment. Every now and then there is a harp player or a guitar player playing really local music, not, let's say, commercial music, but local music. And it's nice because you always meet people, you know it yourself, you always meet somebody, you can just have a nice chat, especially now the past year. It was also important that the tradition was kept alive, at least as long as it was possible, or in the times that it was possible, because it's necessary to just have that social contact. And in a smaller town, of course, this is nice. And we see that people appreciate that a lot. I mean, I myself, if I don't work or whatever, have time, or just don't, if I'm not up at the mountain Saturday morning, that's where I am.
A perfect place to not only dive into the city center to get in touch with locals, but also to enjoy the regional and organic products you can purchase around. Which brings me to the upcoming video. We are lucky to show you a really nice place, a special place, which is called Die Wilderin. We will show you a short video. We can dive into the cooking and everything around Die Wilderin. And afterwards, we do have the chance to ask Claudia some questions.
When we started out way back when, so March 2012, our vision was to cook with regional and seasonal produce, which we source from the farmers around the area. There are so many wonderful traditional farms out here in Tirol and also in the Alpine region in and around Innsbruck. But there are also a lot of young people and young farmers coming up now who take over the farms of their parents or their grandparents. And they start out with a lot of enthusiasm and new ways of producing things. Small and medium-sized farms are very important to have in any region across the globe, we believe, because it's important to you always get you're always able to get great products and good products out of the region, but also they look after our nature. They make sure that we have the surroundings and the landscape we do now. If you look around Tirol, we have great mountains, wonderful Alps, and without small and medium-sized farmers, we wouldn't have that. So to eat regionally and seasonally is almost an imperative to ensure that we have these surroundings for years to come and for everybody to enjoy. We are obviously also influenced by the dishes our grandmother used to cook. And we have still traditional dishes in the Wilderin, sometimes on the menu, but this is not the standard. We find it very interesting to be able to use the local products and use recipes from across the world, so let ourselves influenced by it. So we're still in lockdown in Austria, but you know what the great thing about owning a restaurant in lockdown is? That when your chefs pop by because they want to try some new recipes, you can persuade them to cook something for you. And my favorite spring dish would be wild garlic pesto pasta, and that's what they made for me today. Here it is. Now we have homemade pasta, and when I look at this plate, this is spring for me. It looks like spring, it smells like spring, and it will taste like spring as well, so enjoy. When we buy our meat, so where do we get it from in the Wilderin? We buy the whole animal. From day one, this was our philosophy. And I think when you eat meat and you make the decision to eat meat, it's very important that you use every single part of the animal, because an animal has died for you to be able to eat meat. We need to respect and honor that a living being has died for it and eat the whole animal from nose to tail, from head to toe. We have another messenger of spring on this plate. We have a farmer. He asked us whether we wanted to have pak choy. And we were like, pak choy from Austria? And it's one of the first greens. It's completely different flavor. We are not used to it in Austria. I mean, it doesn't find its way in the traditional Austrian cuisine, but it works perfectly well. You have the beetroot, which has got this earthy, sweet flavor, and then the potatoes from last year. And so you have what spring is all about, the freshness of the first greens, but also still the storage vegetables from last year. And you can see that if you eat regionally, you have to eat seasonally at the same time. So what would an evening in the Wilderin look like? Well, once you get through the doors, we greet you and guide you to your table. You just arrive and forget about anything that might have bothered you the whole day or whatever is on your mind, and you just need to relax and sit back. We will then offer you a crisp white wine or a local beer, whatever takes your fancy, and then we guide you through the menu and tell you what dishes we have on our menu that day, help you answer any questions you might have, and help you and assist you in making your choices for dinner and drinks. And then all you need to do is just relax. We want to make you feel at home, and so that you don't have to worry about anything. And it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what you wear. You just are here to enjoy yourself, sit back, relax, and be yourself.
Oh, that sounded great. Sit back, relax, and getting food served. But I think now it's time for your questions. Please keep on asking them in the chat, and we'll answer them now. So the first question we've received is for Claudia. You mentioned seasonal cooking. So what is the difficulty of cooking seasonally, and what's so special about that?
Well, when you use products from the region like we do in the Wilderin, you're also obviously bound to the season as well. And then you have to realize that you don't get everything all year round. So you have to find ways to preserve things if you want to keep it for a longer period of time and plan ahead. And I need to give an example of that. In our first year, we completely did not plan ahead. And in regards to berries and fruits, so the first winter we had no fruits left over for our desserts. And so the next year we had to think about what we're going to do. So we started to make jams and chutneys and use old grandmother recipes to ensure that we have it for a little bit longer as well. Sorry. And then we also freeze and make sorbets. So this is one part you need to make sure that you have it all year round, or at least a little bit longer. The second one is also that nature is nature and weather is weather, and not everything comes at a certain point in time onto our plate. So a good example for that would be strawberries. I mean, at the moment, in a normal year, we would have, when the strawberries would start to come from the fields, mid of May. Last year, we had a very warm spring, so they started to arrive early May. This year, unfortunately, we had a very cold spring, and I phoned my farmer the other day, and he said, well, Claudia, it has been far too cold. You're going to have to wait another 2 to 3 weeks. So you have to be quite flexible as well when you cook with regional produce. And also what you shouldn't forget is that you can't get any standards in products. I mean, every pig tastes differently, every cow, every calf, every sheep, every chicken. You need to have a very good kitchen crew who can do something with this and is very enthusiastic about it. And luckily in Die Wilderin, we do have that. But yes, it's tricky and it's a little bit difficult to cook with regional and seasonal produce. But I think to be in sync with nature is the only way to cook. Our grandmothers used to do it, and we enjoy it as well.
Yeah, to be in sync with nature, that sounds really good. So the next question is then for you, Antonella. You are a true Innsbruck expert. What is your favorite spot to end the day in a relaxing way?
Depending, of course, on the weather, but if the weather is nice like it is today, then I always ended up somewhere outside. As I live, let's say, between a town center and the section where you change from the funicular to the cable car, right in between, that's where I live. So near the Alpine Zoo, I like to go for a run just in that area. And it's also nice because you also meet other people doing maybe similar activities. And you're not completely alone, let's say it this way. It's just nice and social. And actually the Northern Mountain Range is somehow my favorite spot. Also because, as we're talking about food kitchen, there are special herbs up there. I'm sure Claudia knows it. Thyme, for instance, which is, by the way, also the reason why it's called Karwendel, from the German word Quendel, that grows up there. And, the smells, the taste, it's perfect. By the way, when it's windy like today, then you can even smell more intensively than on calmer days.
Great, thank you. And we have another question going in that direction. People are searching now more and more for natural and wild spaces. Is Innsbruck offering this, or what place would you suggest they should visit, Antonella?
Yeah, absolutely. As Innsbruck is so small, and if you look around Innsbruck, it's right in between the town. Also, the town itself is rather green, and everywhere outside we have wild nature. By the way, this is also, I just read it in the papers last weekend. It's a momentary project, also political, quite intensive one. They are more and more trying to keep lots of areas around Innsbruck completely untouched, to preserve also the very rare beings of plants. For instance, it's up on the Northern Mountain Range, and also here in the Silschlucht, in the gorge, which is just next to the Bergisel area. And therefore we have really wild, authentic nature. And the Karwendel area right behind us is also part of a big natural reservoir. Lots of people there, of course, doing their activities, but it's a big nature park, and wild, also untouched nature. For instance, if you stand up on top of the Northern Mountain Range, easily also with just using the cable car or the funicular, you have that extreme contrast facing the south. You see the city center of Innsbruck, the lively, young, populated area and active area. And if you face down or face towards the north, you look into completely untouched nature with very wild limestone mountains and huge forests. So it's a fantastic contrast. And also, you know, I was born here and I live here, and of course I traveled a lot because of my job, but 10 years ago then I came definitely back because it's so great to live here, and still being up there, it fascinated me to have that extreme contrast. And Innsbruck as a town offers also everything that a town needs to offer, so it never gets bored.
That's true.
Yeah, I think I can definitely agree with it, and I was one of the students who studied there. But now to a more serious question. What are the plans for a safe summer holiday, and maybe for both of you, and also Claudia, for you, what about COVID restrictions in your restaurants?
Mm-hmm. Shall I go?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Well, obviously in the hospitality industry, we are already having very high hygiene standards, and they being adhered to and controlled as well all the time. From last year, I think everywhere there is also disinfection going on. Everybody keeps in disinfecting areas where guests might be have access to. And from next Wednesday onwards, from the 9th of May, we are allowed to open up again, the restaurants and the hotels. And there have been now measurements put in place by the government. They're quite strict, but also very good, I think. We have to, well, basically guests need to be aware that they need to have proof of a negative COVID test when they want to enter a restaurant, or they need to have proof that they had been vaccinated or had a past infection. Thank you. Then you need to wear a FFP2 mask whenever you're not seated at your table. Guests also need to register with us. They need to leave their name and details like email or phone number, just in case we need to contact trace. The tables need to have to stand 2 meters apart from one another in restaurants and also in the outdoor facilities, and you can only have a group of 4 people maximum indoors, excluding kids. So on top of that, you can take kids as well, or outdoors you have 10 people in a group. And the waiters and restaurant owners, they will also need to wear masks, FFP2 masks if they are not being tested once a week. If they're being tested once a week, normal mask will do as well. And closing time of the restaurant, unfortunately, will be 10 o'clock in the evening. So I think I covered everything on that one. Yeah. But I think we're all prepared and getting ready for it and looking forward to it as well.
Yeah, it's similar for tour guiding. I mean, they still have to actually work to get the regulations a little bit more understandable or better done, to be honest, because we are actually after the 19th of May allowed to do tours again with groups up to 50 people. I mean, so far we do not think that too many groups will come at the moment. Maybe then, as they said, it will start probably in July, August. But still, we would need to register every single guest. Every group needs to be registered itself. If the group is bigger than 11 people, every person needs to be vaccinated, tested, or
past infection.
Past the infection. And the regulations for museums, they are just now being done, how they will make it possible then to also enter museums and palaces with bigger groups. We will see. So actually every day we have some slight changements, and next week probably they will have other rules again, maybe more understandable at the moment. For tour guiding, the situation is still a little bit complicated, let's say it this way. But first of all, we need to have guests again, and we hope very much that now as the borders will open at the end of May, that this will be the case.
Yeah, definitely. But I think Innsbruck and Tirol seem to be very well prepared. And next week on the 19th, tourism in Austria will open up again. So on a more positive note now, Claudia, you mentioned that you buy products directly from a farm. Is it possible also tourists to just visit small farms around Innsbruck and buy products directly, or is it just for restaurants?
No, definitely. Everybody can go into the farms and buy their products at farms. I mean, not every farm has, but more farms have started over the last couple of years to have small little shops on their farms where they actually sell their products. And there's one, we can see it from over there, it's just up there, the Planetzenhof, which is very easily accessible from Innsbruck city center. And you can visit up there, they have a restaurant as well, you can visit the stables and you can buy their products in their shops. But also on the outskirts here, there are all the small little farms. If you just ask at the tourist information or come to us at the Wilderin, we can tell you where you can go and pick up some local produce. And obviously we also have very cool and very good farmer markets in around Innsbruck. So you can buy a local produce there as well.
Great, so plenty of options. And nowadays also travelers are increasingly looking for experiences. Can you, Antonella, recommend any experiences in Innsbruck? For example, accompany a chef to a market and cook together afterwards, or another experience? What would you suggest?
Yeah, there are quite a few possibilities. I mean, Innsbruck is also a town which has grown very rapidly, and the many, let's say, former villages are now integrated into town, and this is also the reason why actually we have so many farms, really farms right in town, not in the historical city center, but in town. And as Claudia mentioned, they offer also, kind of special, let's call it, or attractions, also in that case for tourists, for instance, if they make their own schnapps or their own liqueurs or other kinds of products, they invite tourists. And actually, the tourism board, they have all the connections, and they can also arrange that. So it's easy.
And I think in the Markthalle, you can also cook with the guys.
Yeah, that's right. You can cook and in the Markthalle, which is right in the city center, or also taste like really unique Tirolean product, like for instance, the typical grey cheese, which is something that just we have. I know that even the Bavarians are sometimes in videos and come and buy it because it's something that you get just here, and which is very typical. And
so there's this little cooking box in the market hall, and there are two chefs in there, and then you can organize with them to actually go around the market, buy your products, and then cook with them together, or just watch them while they cook the products from the market hall. I think that's quite, if you're interested in that,
that's right.
Definitely something to do. Yeah.
Or in the evening also enjoy, for instance, going to the Wilderin, of course, or enjoy many of the pubs that we have also offering music, live music now. They are planning actually plenty of that kind of activities after a long, let's say, quite quiet year that we passed. And they are also planning on integrating tourists and tourism more maybe than in the past years, also to the local activities that are. And they are communicated over the tourism board. And actually they have done lots in that respect, and the past year they used it also to get those activities then better promoted for the future. So future starts now, that summer season.
Great, thank you very much for these tips. I probably would prefer to go to the Wilderin instead of cooking my own meal, but we have time for one last question. That's for Antonella. It's about the Innsbruck card. Is it still available, and what are the benefits of the Innsbruck card?
Yeah, the Innsbruck card is still available, and it depends on how much time you're spending in Innsbruck. You can either buy it for 24 days, 24 hours, 48 or 72 hours, so 1, 2, or 3 days. And it includes the entrance to all kinds of museums, tourist attractions, to the city liner that we have, or city sightseer, it's actually called. It's more or less like a hop on, hop off bus that tours the town. Also the attractions outside, like Berg Isel, where we are right now, or Castle Amras. On the other side, the Alpine Zoo. And it offers also access, which is really good, to the cable cars on both sides of Innsbruck up to the northern mountain range, or also to the Pachakofel to the south, which is just next to the Berg Isel, which is also our, let's say, Olympic mountain, because the downhill races took place up there. And also public transportation. So actually you do not need to spend any additional money if you have the Innsbruck card, and it offers access to everything, to tourist and also local attraction. I mean, using like public transportation, or also for us locals, the mountains around need also to be, or are always part of our lifestyle, let's say it that way. Yeah. And you can also, I do not know if this is now proper to just call a name, but we have a very famous crystal producer in Innsbruck, and let's say in Tirol, which is also a big attraction. And the shuttle to there and the entrance is also part of the Innsbruck card benefits.
Great, thank you very much. So it's definitely worth getting the Innsbruck card. Unfortunately, we are already at the end of the session. All questions, as mentioned in the introduction, will be answered in the follow-up email. But for now, I say thank you to Antonella and Claudia, and hopefully we'll see you soon in Innsbruck in Tirol.